Norton have to do to win this fight? Because he is fighting a younger man and a guy who can really stick.
Well, age being a factor, Ken Norton must start off early. He must do damage in the earlier rounds.
Okay, so we'll talk more about that. We have a potential champion and a former champion. And a tribute right now to a couple of other former champions, great champions at that. Let's go to ring announcer Jack Lee.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with tonight's boxing program, we'd like to have everyone in Madison Square Garden stand for a moment of silent tribute to two great boxers who are no longer with us. The toy bulldog, Mickey Walker, and the former heavyweight champion of the world, the brown bomber, Joe Louis. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this contest is 10 rounds. Introducing in the corner to my left, he hails from the Dominican Republic. He weighs 139.5 pounds. He wears the maroon trunks trimmed in black. Here is Miguel Montilla. His opponent in the corner to my right, he hails from Carolina, Puerto Rico, 139 pounds, red trunks trimmed in white. Here is Domingo Ayala. Johnny Lobianco is your referee. 10 rounds.
So we're just about set to go with this 10-round fight. Ayala, from what we understand, a knockout puncher of some repute in his 18-19 fights, in which he's 17-1-1. He has 14 knockouts. Johnny Lobianco, the referee. Montilla has not had a fight since December of last year, and in fact, despite a record of 28-5-2 with 19 knockouts, so he can punch too, he has lost 3 of his last 5 fights. Now this is considered an elimination fight for a title shot in the junior welterweight division. Ayala comes in at 139 pounds, Montilla at 139.5. Both fighters wearing red trunks, Montilla with a black stripe, Domingo Ayala with a white stripe. That is Ayala on the right of your screen right now. Look for Ayala to go to work early on Montilla. Ayala was taking the route in his last fight against Adriano Marrero. That a 10-round decision, which he won. And a warning from Lobianco, cuffing behind the ears. And immediately, Ayala goes to work on Montilla. Right above us now, 3 left hands miss.
Ayala being the younger of the two and far more the inexperienced, you're going to see a lot of action from him. A lot of punches going to be thrown and missed because this guy really wants to win. Whereas at Montilla, he is the experience, but then again, he hasn't been that active, which could be a factor in this fight.
We've talked about that time and again. A fighter just has to stay active. You can work out in the gym, I guess, until you're blue in the face, and that really doesn't get the same feel as fighting.
That's true, Barry. I like to fight once a month.
As long as you can make $12 million doing it. Ayala, once again, the aggressor early on in the first round here, just about halfway through round 1. Domingo Ayala, Miguel Montilla, right over us now. 2 quick left hands right in the corner. Score on Montilla by Ayala. good left hand by Ayala. He's got a fast left hand. And a left hand by Montilla. Rubbery legged is Ayala now. First punch of the fight by Montilla. He has Ayala in trouble against the ropes. Pushes him a right hand to the jaw. And Ayala tries to tie him up. Can't do it yet. Montilla now all the aggressor. A good left hand wobble the legs of Domingo Ayala. And Montilla still at him. Still rubbery legged is Ayala. A right hand and a left hand to the head. Another left to the head. And Ayala holds on. And that has brought the crowd here at the Garden to its feet. Another right hand lead this time by Montilla scores on Ayala. And again a right hand lead, this time over the shoulder. We come to the end of round one. Outstanding round for the underdog Miguel Montilla.
Well, that's what people love about boxing when it happens, which is the unexpected. Ayala, who was just sort of sailing along and setting the pace and measuring his man, suddenly finds himself hit and holding on for dear life. Here we see the corner administering salts to him and trying to wake up. Let's take a look at that punch in the replay. A clean right hand followed by a left, and Ayala is hurt. He's wobbling. His right leg sort of did a curtsy, and it was an involuntary curtsy. Ayala sensed that now is the time to go after him and get him, and he's trying everything he knows, and Ayala is holding on to that arm for dear life.
Well, interestingly, in the end, it was Ayala who was looking like the experienced fighter, finally tying up Montilla, despite the fact Montilla has had 35 fights and Ayala just 19. Second round. That is Domingo Ayala on the right. Miguel Montilla, who had his man in trouble in the first round. In the dark trunks, the red trunks with the black stripe. Both fighters wearing red. There's a left hand by Ayala that hurts Montilla. And now Ayala is going to be warned again for holding and hitting, and he definitely was doing that right above us here. Montilla comes back with a right hand lead.
Well, when Ayala was hurt, he was not hurt until he switched from southpaw stance to orthodox stance.
It is Ayala, the aggressor here in round two. Now backs Montilla into a corner. What a combination by Montilla. A lot of punches being thrown early in the fight. This is a 10-round fight, remember. Junior welterweights, Domingo Ayala, Miguel Montilla. Montilla had Ayala in trouble in the first round. Ayala has hurt Montilla early in the second round.
I notice what Montilla is trying to do. He works the body, he goes back to the head with the overhand right. One thing about the inactivity in Montilla is it's taking his toll here. He's not sharp, his punch is not as smooth, and he don't deliver as quickly as he normally would.
That is when it would show, I would guess, when he had his man in trouble in the first round, unable to put him away, threw a lot of punches, wasted a lot of punches, and then realized he had 9 rounds to fight yet. There's a left hand by Montilla that backs Ayala up. And another overhand right scores, a left cross scores, all by Montilla. Ayala against the ropes. And a left hand again scores, catching Ayala back on his heels.
Ayala has a bad habit of holding his opponent behind the head with one hand and delivering that right uppercut.
Ayala does not appear to be hurt, even though he has absorbed a little punishment here in the second round. Left hand by Montilla misses, and a right overhead. A lot of action early on here between these two junior welterweights. 10-round fight. Each man has been staggered. And we come to the end of round two. Well, Ayala came out like he meant business, but then he got stung again, just making a couple of careless, what you might call inexperienced mistakes.
But Ayala is very inexperienced, and he's still green a little. A fight like this with Montilla, it's going to help him out, because this guy, Montilla, he's a veteran. He's been around. He knows the ring. He knows the ropes. All he doesn't have is the activity behind his belt.
Talk again about the layoff that Montilla's had. Not that it's been that long, but it's been a little over 5 months, and I guess every fighter likes to stay active, but it really cost him in the first round, I would think.
Well, little fighters, especially the non-heavyweights, they need to stay active to keep sharp and to keep the time.
Just looking at Montilla in his corner now, just trying to catch his breath. And remember, we're only in the second round. Have gone through 2 rounds. Third round coming up here. And of the 2, you would have to think at this moment, early in the fight, Ayala is probably the better condition to the 2. Just taking a look at the contrast in the 2 corners. Montilla breathing heavily, Ayala very relaxed. Let's see if it tells in round 3. Again, a left hand by Montilla to start things. Ayala tries an uppercut that is a little bit short, comes back with a combination that scores to Montilla. And another left by Ayala. And a right hand brushes the nose of Montilla. Separates the 2 now. Right hand lead by Ayala is a little short, opens himself up, but Montilla couldn't counter.
If you notice the way when Ayala delivers a punch, he throws his whole body, his legs, everything in.
And there is a right hand that puts Ayala on the canvas, just like that. Ayala is up and staggering at the count of 7. Lobianco wipes the hands off. He will continue, but he is hurt. There's no question. Here comes Montilla again. Looked like a right hand. There's a left that hurts him again. And another left and a right to the body. And the referee jumps in and stops the fight. That's all. Miguel Montilla has upset Domingo Ayala. It's hard to tell what punch did the damage. They had their backs to us. And Ayala is protesting vehemently about the referee's decision to stop the fight. Tries to get away from his handlers in the corner. I don't think there's any question, though, Larry, that he was hurt.
He was hurt badly, and I think as much as he was hurt, his corner people was stunned at the unexpected ending here. They were looking for this fight to get a little exposure and to move on into championship contention. And this sets them way, way back, and they are just in a state of shock. And perhaps the winner is almost in an equal state of shock the other way. A fighter knows when he's being brought in to make the other guy look good, doesn't he, Ray?
That's true. That's true. I was making a statement earlier that Ayala was jumping in with his punches, and that big punch came in.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time of contest, 1 minute, 17 seconds of the 3rd round. Referee Johnny Lobianco stops the contest. The winner by a technical knockout is Miguel Montilla.
Well, I would call that a major surprise. Can't help but wonder if that's not a sign of things to come here at the Garden.
Yeah, well, Ayala has 15 knockouts on his record now. One of them is for him. Unfortunately.
Well, he's young. I think he has a chance to come back.
Well, Montilla actually had fought a couple of times some people who are not exactly what you would call chopped liver. He lost to Antonio Cervantes for the World Junior Welterweight title, but he went 15 rounds with him, so at least he's been in some fairly good company.
Serves them right for both wearing red trunks.
That's right.
I don't know why we have a trend today in prize fighting to find more and more fights in which the fighters both wearing the same trunks. Ayala is really protesting now, but he's talking to justice that has already spoken.
Well, Ayala pleads to the fans. We're going to have another opportunity to look at the damage inflicted by Miguel Montilla with what looked like a right hand, but it was really hard to say. It was a sneaky shot. Ray, let's take a look at this.
Well, here we see the big punch that's landed, and I really didn't get a chance to see that punch.
Looked like it was a right hand, but looked like it landed on the chest if it landed anywhere.
Well, I thought it was a left, so There's a right hand. That was exactly a right hand, and then he came up with a left, but the damage had already been done. The left landed high on his head. Ayala was trying to make a democratic ballot out of this, appealing to the fans here at Madison Square Garden, but only one man has a vote in ending the fight, and that's the referee.
Well, I don't think there's any question that he was hurt when he was above us. While they were counting, his legs were wobbly. When he got up, he was somewhere in the middle of the ring, not really in the middle of the ring, but on the ropes in the middle of the ring, and he staggered into the corner, neutral corner right above us. No question about the fact he was hurt. Right after that, when the action started again, Montilla hit him with 3 or 4 punches to the body. That brought his hands way down, and one man's opinion, if you'll allow, is the simple fact that the man was beaten. Coming up, you're going to be seeing highlights of the Marvis Frazier-Steve Zouski fight. Frazier in just his 4th professional fight. He, of course, the son of Joe Frazier. Sugar Ray Leonard, you and I were talking about this before the fight. It's an unenviable task to come into the ring as the son of a former champion. Not that you've been in that position, but I'm sure you can relate to it very well.
Well, Barry, there's pressure going to the ring anyway, but it's an additional pressure when you have to follow in the footsteps of your father, who is Joe Frazier. I think it's a long road to follow.
Well, still coming up.
There's pressure, but I always relate pressure to the fact that if you've got the ability and if you got the will and you want to do it, you love the pressure. It just adds to it. It makes you want to do good. We at HBO did a Marvis Frazier fight when he was an amateur, stunning knockout. He was considered an exceptional prospect as an amateur. Let's go to Ken Norton's dressing room right now and see what's doing inside there before we go to the Marvis Frazier preliminary fight.
Ray, let me put you in a position I put you in before. What's going through a fighter like Ken Norton's mind at a time like this, just moments before you have to come into the ring and face a guy who you know you're an underdog to, who just about everybody in the house is thinking is going to beat you?
Well, Barry, it's tough. It's pressure. You think about it because the expectations, especially if you is not the favorite. You wonder what is going through people's mind, but you want to prove to the people that they are totally wrong.
Norton, of course, in the minds of most observers here, is the considered underdog. However, there are some people who we have talked to, one of whom is a guy who is near and dear to you, Ray, and that is Angelo Dundee, who thinks that Kenny Norton is going to win the fight.
Well, Kenny has a chance. I mean, both guys are capable of taking each other out. And it just depends on who lands what punch and what round. I really don't see the fight going beyond 5 rounds.
All right, we'll have an opportunity now to go back to a fight that was held a little bit earlier. It is a fellow by the name of Marvis Frazier, of whom we've spoken, and he's in with a tough customer from Brockton, Massachusetts, who's lost just once, named Steve Zouski. So here we go, round 1. Marvis Frazier on the left of your screen against Steve Zouski. He comes from Brockton, Massachusetts, handled by the same people who handle Marvin Hagler. Frazier wearing pink trunks with a white stripe, Zouski in the red with a white stripe. Zouski could give Frazier all that Marvis wants. Marvis has had just 3 fights. Zouski has had 16, has won 15 of them, 10 of them by knockout. Frazier working on him with the left hand now.
We've already done
Zouski covers up in Frazier's corner.
You know where Larry Holmes is?
Zouski showing a bit of a punch.
Marvis is a totally different fighter than his father, Joe, because he uses his jab, and he's much more of a boxer than his father.
Does bear a strong facial resemblance to Joe Frazier, though. He's working in Marvis's corner. Marvis undefeated in 3 fights, has 2 knockouts, went the distance for the first time in his last fight on April 10th. Against somebody named Calvin Langston. Frazier getting the better of the early going here. Zouski with the right hand lead, a little bit short.
One thing to watch for in Marvis is the way he delivers his punches. You notice he grunts every time he delivers a punch. It's short, inside, to the body, and back to the head.
He's got a pretty good coach in his father, Joe Frazier.
Can't believe what they did here.
Fairly good right hand by Zouski, lands to the cheek of Marvis Frazier. No damage, though. Good left hand by Frazier sends Zouski back against the ropes.
That could be a very bad habit for any good fighter. The way Marvis drops his left hand after he delivers a punch. And Zouski, with that overhand right, could do some damage.
About 2 minutes into round one here. The left hand scores to the face of Zouski. Good strong left jab by Marvis Frazier.
I can't.
15 seconds remaining here.
I keep pulling back.
Another combination. And the end of round one. So Marvis Frazier rather impressive in his first effort, his first round of his fourth fight, taking control immediately, and Larry Merchant had a chance to talk with Dad, Joe Frazier.
You're here tonight as a trainer of your son. How does it feel for you being in the corner and watching your son fight?
Well, it's no different feeling. It's just the idea that it gives me, let's say, pride and pleasure and privilege and being honored to have a young man that follow my footstep and can do a fine job.
Do you hurt when he gets hit?
No, I got about like 4 or 5 boys in the gym with my sister's sons, my brother's sons, and 2 of my sons. I don't hurt when they get clipped. It's the idea that they know their job. I try to teach the best I know how, to them how to do it. So I really don't get fear, you know, when they get hit.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Pretty good sticking left jab by Marvis Frazier. Frazier looks very composed for a guy who's only had 3 fights.
I would say that, Barry. And Zouski, if you take a good look at Zouski, his body is very deceptive. He really doesn't look like a good puncher, but he's had 15 KOs in his career.
Zouski trying to exert a little pressure on Marvis Frazier, who tries to lean in on him and stay at close range. Zouski looks as though he'd prefer to fight at long range. Another good solid left hand to the side of the head, and another one by Marvis Frazier.
One habit that Marvis definitely has, that his father had, is that grunt every time he lets go a punch.
Zouski hasn't taken a backward step. You must say that about him. And blood now shows from the nose, I believe, of Zouski. Looks like a cut might be on the bridge of the nose. Really hard to tell. Combinations again, scoring almost at will now by Marvis Frazier as they are in Frazier's corner. Zouski with the left jab tries to get off the ropes. And a left hand to the body brings the arms of Zouski down.
And looking at Zouski's waistline, doesn't seem like he did his exercises.
No, it
I
does
think
not
as
look like
Frazier go to the body a little bit, I think he'll see a whole different change.
Frazier does move his punches around pretty good. Throws a lot of different kinds of punches. Goes from the hook to the uppercut. Good solid left jab. There's a right hand by Zouski that scores on the side of the face of Marvis Frazier. And Zouski goes to the body. Frazier comes back with a jab to the head.
I'll tell you, he is fighting like his father, although he's not built like his father. He's short and stocky and very strong. Marvis is trying to stay right on top of the opponent.
And here's a good right hand to the jaw of Zouski. Zouski doubles up. Another good right hand by Frazier. Zouski back into the corner now. Legs wobble just a little bit. 15 seconds to go in round 2, 6-round fight. Marvis Frazier getting all the best of it right now. Blood on the bridge of the nose of Steve Zouski. And we come to the end of round 2. And we right now are eavesdropping in the locker room of Ken Norton. Ray, I have to ask you, in your own mind, being in the same position as Ken Norton just before a fight, have you already fought that fight in your mind?
Well, you've already envisioned how it's going to take place, especially the way you want the victory to be. And I'm quite sure Norton has his own particular thought wave going now.
I would expect that this is the most difficult time for any fighter.
Yeah, at the present time, you don't want to be bothered. You just want to get in the ring, get it over with, and throw your hands up.
These early minutes are very important for Ken Norton. Most observers feel not just the early minutes in here, of course, but the early minutes of the fight to come, because his whole history has been that he gains confidence as the fight goes in distance. And if he survives those early minutes, gets on through the first and second round, he just might find the old Ken Norton inside the skin of the older Ken Norton.
Right now, let's go to round 3. Steve Zouski and Marvis Frazier. Steve Zouski with his back to you, red trunks, white stripe. Frazier having the best of the first 2 rounds. In fact, the best punch was not the left hand, which has been his most frequent punch, but rather a right uppercut that caught the chin of Steve Zouski about midway through the second round.
You notice that Marvis is moving around a little bit, and this shows versatility in a fighter, which is a necessity, because if one particular strategy doesn't work, then you go to something else that's far more effective.
Blood again shows a little bit from the nose of Steve Zouski. Doesn't seem to be in a place where it would bother him too much. It's on the bridge of the nose. Another good right hand that time by Marvis Frazier. Frazier went the distance for the first time in his 3 fights in his last outing. That a 6-round victory. Fought all 3 of his fights in New York. Trains, of course, in Philadelphia. Frazier in control of the fight now, just seemingly pacing himself. Waits for Zouski to come to him, throws a combination of punches, none of which causes any great damage. Also cut up above the left eye of Steve Zouski, who scores with a combination of Frazier. Frazier now going to the stomach. And again, a left hand to the stomach. Right hand behind the head of Frazier.
Zouski is just as strong inside as Frazier.
Zouski liking to work in close quarters right now. He's trying to stay away from Frazier early in the fight. Frazier now with a series of jabs.
As I was saying earlier, Barry, Zouski is just as strong inside as Frazier, but inside, Frazier delivers that right uppercut, which does a great deal of damage to him.
That has been the most devastating punches of the fight. 2 or 3 right uppercuts from Marvis Frazier. 20 seconds remaining here in round 3. Again, Frazier pretty much controlling the tempo, although Zouski scoring to some degree here in this round. Frazier again backs Zouski into the ropes now. There's a right uppercut that scores again to the chin of Zouski. And we come to the end of round 3.
There you see the big picture of the darkened garden with those starlit bulbs up in the sky. And there you see Gerry Cooney's locker room. We are not inside Gerry Cooney's locker room because he doesn't want us inside there. And I suppose if everything we've heard about him is true, he'll come rip-roaring right through the door, breaking everything down in his way. And in fact, that's how a lot of people hope that he starts this fight, in order to take advantage of the fact that Ken Norton traditionally has been a sort of timid starter against heavy punchers in particular. There you see one of the co-managers, one of the conservative, cautious co-managers of Gerry Cooney. And obviously they feel that Ken Norton is just another stepping stone towards bigger and bigger things.
Those are a couple of pretty big things standing in front of the locker there. This is round 4, Steve Zouski and Marvin Frazier now. Zouski having been pummeled pretty good by Marvis Frazier, but still doesn't look to have really lost too much of the zip in his punches. That is Zouski on the right, Marvis Frazier on the left. You were mentioning earlier, Ray, that Frazier does have a tendency to sometimes drop one of his arms, and that could give Zouski an opening.
Well, Frazier drops that left hand, and he's vulnerable for an overhand right. Zouski's been throwing that overhand right, but he hasn't got a clean enough shot to do any damage.
He threw that right a couple of times right there, but missed with it a little bit wild. Zouski not a stylish fighter. Good combination right there by Marvis Frazier. And again, a combination by Frazier. Throwing punches in combination, and that, of course, is the name of the game.
Frazier puts his punches together quite well, but he doesn't have any particular balance. And it takes away the power that is being delivered when he throws his punches.
Zouski and Frazier again in close quarters here. Frazier, like his father, puts his head on your shoulder and bangs away, hopes to wear his man down halfway through round 4.
Zouski, on the other hand, he's a rough, tough fighter inside, and he loves to fight this way. As I see it, he can do just as much damage inside as Frazier can.
Zouski misses with another wild right hand, and a right to the midsection does score on Marvis Frazier. Frazier's had pretty much the best of the fight right from the beginning. Another left to the stomach, then upstairs left to the head. Zouski trying to slip between the guard of Marvis Frazier and doing so with only minimal success. About 45 seconds remaining now in the 4th round. Marvis Frazier in his 4th professional fight scores the right uppercut right there on Steve Zouski. Zouski a little rubbery legged here.
Well, those uppercuts is not helping him out any.
Zouski catches a left hand from Frazier on the cheek that time on the way in, misses with a combination of his own, scores with a left hand, misses with a right, and takes a left hand from Frazier. Frazier now backs Zouski into the corner, rather into the ropes. Zouski tries to get him out in the middle of the ring. Right hand does score by Steve Zouski. A combination by Marvis Frazier has Zouski covering up once again. And we come to the end of round 4. Oh, we still, of course, await the start of this man, Ken Norton, fighting Gerry Cooney. Norton, of course, is the underdog. Ken Norton was around when the man you're watching, Marvis Frazier's father, Joe, was very much in the professional limelight, and Frazier had some things to say about Ken Norton in a conversation he had earlier tonight with our own Larry Merchant.
Joe, what does Ken Norton have to do to win this fight tonight?
Well, the main thing Ken has to do is go out there and win the fight. I think that Ken should have much more experience than let's say, Cooney. If he don't use it, well, it's really not Gerry's fault.
How can Norton use his experience against Cooney?
Well, he can't use it, let's say, tonight by learning. Like I said earlier, you know, all training and let's say, home training and respect begin at home.
Okay, I'm going to keep going and just start the interview.
Well, we're in round 5 now. Steve Zouski on the right, Marvis Frazier on the left of your screen. Frazier has been in complete control of the fight right from the opening bell. Had Zouski a little rubbery legged a couple of times in round 4. Zouski with a long combination that scores only marginally. Frazier just kind of circling his man now, staying in close quarters. You can hear him grunt with every punch he throws. Little blood still showing from the side of the nose of Steve Zouski.
Frazier's slowing the pace down a little bit. and he's trying to figure out a way he can get the punches in far more effectively than he was in earlier rounds.
Frazier continues to control the tempo of the fight. Really, the outcome has not been in doubt. Zouski, while tough customer, has really provided little offense. Uppercut does score there, but it's a marshmallow punch as we approach the halfway point of round 5. There's a combination to the stomach by Zouski. Frazier again, every now and then will get those hands separated. Looping right hand, side of the head of Frazier by Steve Zouski from Brockton, Massachusetts. Great boxing town. Marvin Hagler, of course, hails from there. Rocky Marciano is Frazier. Gives Zouski another left hand to the chin.
You know, Barry, I'm quite sure when the fans first took a look at Zouski and the way his body is, I guess they said this is a total mismatch. But as we see it now, Zouski is giving Frazier all he can handle.
He really is. Zouski, of course, more the experienced fighter. Not that he has that many fights. He's had 17 fights. Marvis Frazier just in his 4th professional fight. Really looking much more experienced than just having had 4 fights. Takes a lot of punches on his arms. Just every now and then he has not quite perfected that peekaboo style of defense that we will see later tonight from Ken Norton. Zouski has tried that looping overhand right on several occasions, hasn't really scored with it, but seems to be a pretty effective punch. With a combination to the face of Steve Zouski as Marvis Frazier continues to put the pressure on right above us here. 15 seconds remaining here in round 5. Steve Zouski of Brockton, Marvis Frazier of Philadelphia. Well, we want to remind you on Saturday, June 13th, Marvin Hagler and Vito Antuofermo. That for the World Middleweight Championship. I'll be there along with Larry Merchant. Join us then on June 13th as the World Middleweight Champion, marvelous Marvin Hagler, tries it once again against number 3 ranked Vito Antuofermo, a guy who gave him everything he wanted and more. A draw that Marvin thought he wanted. Marvin is out for blood. A scheduled 15-round bout that's live from Boston Garden right here on HBO, Saturday, June 13th. We are at Madison Square Garden as you get kind of a look up at the dome of the garden here. Square Garden, strange name for a round building, but a lot of history here. Steve Zouski, meanwhile, has got just 1 round to do some business with Marvis Frazier. Frazier has been handling it pretty good. And you look into Marvis's corner here as his handlers, one of whom is his father, Joe Frazier, prepare him for the 6th and final round.
Once you position that here, I'll put you on hard line.
That is Zouski on the right, Frazier on the left. Frazier has, as we mentioned time and again, dictated the tempo of the fight. The outcome has not been in any serious doubt at all. He cut him in about the 2nd round, early in the 2nd round, and even though the blood has not bothered Zouski, it has been troublesome enough just to keep his offensive prowess from getting anywhere near or through Marvis Frazier's defense.
Well, a fighter like Zouski, he will really frustrate you and worry you because he's constantly there. You don't have to bother about looking for this guy. This guy will always be there. So that's the reason it's always good to be in shape when you face a guy like a Zouski.
So Frazier continues to force the action. Right hand to the chin of Zouski, scores by Marvis Frazier. But again, he left himself open to a counter punch. Another left hand, good left hook. Left to the stomach, left to the head, right to the head by Frazier as he starts to press Zouski a little bit more here in the final round. I think Frazier at this point knows that Zouski cannot hurt him. Just about halfway through round 6. This is the last round. Marvis Frazier in his 4th professional fight, uppercut, a left hook, and another uppercut to the chin as Zouski forces him against the ropes. Frazier's on top of him that quick. A left and a right score. Zouski now is a little bit wobbly leg. They're in the center of the ring.
Well, at this point now, both fighters is a little tired, but as we see, Frazier has more snap left in his punches than Zouski.
Zouski just trying to cover up right now and wind up at least on a stool at the end of the fight rather than on his back. Zouski does look tired and looks a little bit rubbery right at this juncture. Zouski against the ropes. Frazier scores with a left, another left, and a right uppercut to the chin, and another left to the side of the head, and a right to the side of the head. Frazier scoring at will now against Zouski as he backs him into the ropes above us. Two lefts and a right hand, all by Marvis Frazier, all score, and the referee steps in and says, that's all. With just about 45 seconds remaining in the round, crowd doesn't like it one bit. And neither does Zouski, and I'm not too sure, but he doesn't have an arguable point here. He had 45 seconds to finish the fight.
Well, there wasn't too much serious damage being done. I think with the time that was left in the last round, the fight should have continued.
Zouski doesn't like it at all. The crowd here at the Garden is not too happy with it either. And Marvis Frazier will be a TKO winner. It will not be a popular verdict with the Garden crowd. Zouski walks dejectedly away. He had really hoped to win it. So Marvis Frazier, or at least wind up losing a decision rather than being knocked out as he was, at least a technical knockout, a figurative knockout, if you will, as the referee stops the fight with just about 45 seconds remaining. You see the story from here at the Garden. We still wait for the Gerry Cooney Ken Norton fight. That is coming up pretty quick. Right now, let's go over to Larry Merchant, who has some thoughts on Ken Norton.
Hello. Like Elizabeth Taylor, who is appearing on Broadway, Ken Norton is here because of the name he created in the past. He's here using his name as a sort of credit. And Gerry Cooney, likewise, is here to use his name also as a credit on his record, on the record of Gerry Cooney. It would look nice to beat a Ken Norton. But can he beat a Ken Norton? Let's take a look at Ken Norton's past. It's an interesting past. He got a reputation primarily for losing most fights to great fighters, with one very notable exception. It was like slaying a giant. Few fighters of that time even dreamed about beating Muhammad Ali. But in 1973, a young, relatively unknown Ken Norton found himself face to face with that legend. Norton, once a sparring partner with the only other man to have beaten Ali, Joe Frazier, broke Ali's jaw early in the fight, and he dominated him from start to finish.
7 points, Norton, 5 points.
Total elation, just total elation. I did the so-called impossible. I was 8-1 underdog. I toppled the world, the boxing world. I changed everything around completely, which is the same situation I'm in now. I'm an underdog. I'm supposed to be too old. I'm supposed to be out of shape. I'm supposed to be a bit too slow. And I haven't fought but once in the last 2 years.
Whatever motivates him, money or pride, Norton is preparing for his 51st fight. It is both a successful and disappointing pass that drives him on.
Heavyweight championship of the world.
After losing a rematch with Ali, Norton had his first championship bout against George Foreman. The powerful Foreman brought him to a humiliating defeat in 2 rounds, exposing a serious chink in his armor.
Norton goes down again. A left hand on the side of the head. His legs are rubbery as the left hand goes to the side of his head. A right uppercut, a left jab, and a vicious left sends Norton crumbling to the canvas.
The knockout stopped Norton only temporarily. While Hollywood was making his near-perfect body a sex symbol, he was preparing for a 3rd match with Muhammad Ali. He beat Jerry Quarry on the way to his real goal, the championship. Norton always felt he could beat Ali any time, and he went into this fight with that attitude. He fought hard, and many observers thought he won.
He put so much into it, and he won the fight so beautifully, and he executed his fight plan so beautifully, and he had so much left after the 15th round And everybody told him afterwards that, gee, you got robbed. Everybody that you talked to said Ken Norton won that fight. If you put all that effort to work, that supernatural effort, and then you win a fight against an opponent who's supposed to be the greatest of all times, and then they don't give you the decision, that is a big disappointment.
It was like somebody stuck their hand inside Kenny's chest and ripped his heart out. It just didn't work.
From that point on, my career went on a tailspin. Each fight was decreasingly worse than the one before. I didn't train as hard. I didn't do anything as hard. And I started going through the motions.
Back to the drawing board and the speed bag. With Muhammad Ali coming to the end of his reign, anybody might still become the next heavyweight champion. When Leon Spinks and Ali fought a rematch, the WBC vacated the title. And Norton, with Ali taunting him from the crowd, beat Jimmy Young and later was declared the champion.
15th round of the World Heavyweight title is on.
But Norton's first opponent was the unbeaten Larry Holmes. A close 15-round fight that many have called one of the best heavyweight championship fights ever ended in another disappointment for Norton.
As Holmes comes back, scores a good shot. He's getting under trouble. Yes.
143, 142 for the new
Larry Holmes has done it.
Norton had lost another championship fight, but barely. He has fought the best of them and fought them well.
Ken's used to a lot of pressure. He's used to tough fighters that he's fought, you know, which Cooney hasn't really faced any real tough guys, you know. And Ken will be one of the toughest tests he's had.
Cooney's another fighter who's undefeated, and supposedly a good left hand who really hasn't done anything to impress me that much.
After a 15-month layoff, Norton defeated an inexperienced but strong young fighter, Randy Cobb, and he's been in training ever since.
I think I have more experience. I think I'm stronger. I think I'm as quick, if not quicker. I think I'm more intelligent. And basically, I think I'm a better fighter. I'm in shape.
And exactly 4 years ago tonight, this is what he did to another bright prospect.
What about Gerry Cooney? To be sure, he is inexperienced. He has never fought more than 8 rounds. He has fought only 86 total rounds in his professional career. They say he is a one-handed fighter. They say they don't know if he can take a punch. Well, whether or not he can take a punch, one thing is absolute. He can throw a punch.
6 months ago, Gerry Cooney fought Ron Lyle in Long Island's Nassau Coliseum. The fight lasted 2 minutes and 49 seconds. The cheering lasted 20 minutes. Long Island is not a place with many heroes, but Gerry Cooney has become the man. The man to touch, to kiss, to shake hands with, and to root for. He's a New York kid with a big Irish smile. They love him like a son. Like them, he commutes to work in New York City on the Long Island Railroad. And someday, probably soon, he's going to make it big. And as they say, if you can make it big there, you can make it big anywhere.
There's no place like home, and New York is home for Gerry Cooney.
He's a crowd-pleasing man.
It's his very essence. When he fought in the Nassau Coliseum on October 24th, and you heard 10,000 voices almost singularly crying out, Cooney, Cooney, it was like his very blood. It gets you so up that's why it's so important to have those people in those seats.
Cooney started as an amateur at the Garden, winning the Golden Gloves in 1973 and 1976.
It was a great feeling. I was 16 years old, and I came out and fought in front of 21,000 people and was successful and knocked the guy out in the third round. So, yeah, it was a great moment for me. One of my great moments in the Garden.
And as a professional, he fought in front of Garden crowds a dozen times, getting his first starring role as the main event against Dino Dennis in a dramatic display of his punching power.
I don't want to be a star. I want to be a successful prize fighter.
His regular gym is Bobby Gleason's, where Jake LaMotta trained. But this past week, the Garden has become his gym. He has a devastating punch, which has cost him a lot of sparring partners. And he has a trainer, Victor Valley, to whom he is totally devoted.
They used to see all the fighters. He said, geez, this guy's good, this guy's got... He said, Gerry, one of this day, you're going to be #1 in this gym. And #1 he was. Then I told him, you're going to be #1 in the well. He's #1 now in the well. And now I'm telling Gerry now that I'm going to make Gerry champion of the well.
There are doubters, however, who question his stamina, his inexperience, his ability to take a punch, and his one-handedness.
One of the knocks, of course, is that he has no right hand. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he knocked Ken Norton out with a right hand. I mean, Gerry, his left is so devastating that, of course, all the attention has been focused on that. His right hand is dynamite.
But the left was the weapon that stopped Leroy Boone in the 6th round in Atlantic City in December of last year. Against Jimmy Young, the right hand had a short debut, but the left dominated. The fight was stopped after 4 rounds because of a bad cut on Young's face. And it was after only 2 minutes 49 seconds that veteran Ron Lyle was stopped with a vicious left hook to the ribs. One hand or not, Gerry Cooney is an ominous puncher.
Being a professional that he's trying to take from you, and you have to take from him first, you know? It's just one of those things. You have to get him before he gets you. It's similar to being a gladiator, I suppose.
But the Gladiator is a friendly New York kid who just wants to stay that way.
I don't want to be any different than anybody else. And I just go and do my work. That's all that's important to me.
But for Gerry Cooney, it may be too late for that. This is called Cooney country. And so far, he is the king of the land.
Has had problems with bangers, and that certainly is what he's got tonight.
Well, everybody has to remember the fights against George Foreman in particular, because he was a young, very live heavyweight at that time, and he just sort of crumbled in front of George Foreman, went to the ropes, and Foreman just wore him down, destroyed him in the 2nd round. And later against Ernie Shavers, in that period of time after he lost to Holmes, and in which he said that he wasn't taking much interest in boxing anymore, again, Shavers, a great banger, put him against the ropes and destroyed him in 1 round.
And you look at Ken Norton leaving his locker room now, heading down toward the ring, a very stern look on his face. One might even call the look that we see right here even more than stern, perhaps concerned.
I think it's a look of reality. He's waiting to get into the ring and get the job done.
So Ken Norton starting to make his way into the ring. Norton sweating profusely, and Ray, you've made the point before, that's very important, that a fighter get warm in the locker room.
Yes, Barry, a fighter must loosen up very well, because a lot of fighters start off early and they're not loosened up enough, and the body reacts very differently.
Let me ask you another hypothetical question, Ray. If you're Ken Norton, how do you fight this fight? Norton said in the Larry Holmes fight that he made a mistake in letting Holmes win the first few rounds. Now he's in a position where, in all honesty, I'm sure even he doesn't know if he can go the 10 rounds, so he may have to go out and get him early.
Well, he must go out and do damage early. I think he can intimidate Gerry Cooney. Cooney's young. Cooney never really been in with a guy like a Ken Norton, and Ken Norton really has enough to get Cooney out of there, but you never can tell.
The criticism of Cooney, of course, if any criticism, it's hard to criticize a guy who's won 24 fights and knocked out 20 of his opponents, as you look at Ken Norton. Norton is a man right now in Never Never Land. He has got to go out and get this fighter. I think it's safe to say that it's just about over.
But I know, in a way, there's a much greater risk on the part of Gerry Cooney. He's making $1 million here, so whatever happens, you can't run any benefits for him. But on the other hand, he has big money purses already awaiting him as the #1 contender. And unless he takes out Norton quickly, they're going to say he's just not the prospect that everybody thought he was.
Well, as you see Cooney leave the locker room and head toward the ring himself, you look at his record, 24 wins, no losses. He has 20 knockouts, not the 14 that you just saw there. Cooney is a guy who unquestionably can punch. As a matter of fact, of those 20 knockouts, 10 of them have come inside of 2 rounds. So I think the first 2 rounds are going to be interesting here to see who dictates the pace of the fight.
His average fight has gone about 3.5 rounds. Stamina shouldn't be a problem for him here, even though he's never gone more than 8 rounds. This is only a 10-round fight. He's not fighting a fighter who's going to run a great deal from him. It's not a 15-round fight. In that case, you would seriously wonder how he would react in the late rounds.
Let me once again, Ray, ask you about the psychological aspects of the sport of boxing. Cooney has made Norton be the first one in the ring and wait for him. Is that an advantage?
Sometimes, especially here, I think by being a hometown favorite, it plays a role, a psychological role on your challenger's head.
Ken Norton, of course, is a guy who has aspired to the heavyweight championship for years and years. I think maybe Jerry Eisenberg of the New York Post put it best when he said, destiny always seems to sneak up on Ken Norton and kick him in his aspirations. So Norton is the man who now must await. Gerry Cooney's coming into the ring. He is about to do so now as he makes his appearance before the Garden crowd. Crowd comes to its feet singularly here to cheer on Gerry Cooney, who without question is the hometown favorite. He comes in clad in a green robe. All his handlers are in green. Gerry Cooney is the public choice, to be sure. Cooney, too, comes in looking very stern, very concerned at this juncture. This is a big shot for him. You look at the Garden crowd here. Cheering on Gerry Cooney. There is Don King, of course, one of the biggest and most powerful promoters here, and another onlooker who is ringside. We'll try to get a shot of him as time goes on. Many celebrities ringside here, but Joe DiMaggio was introduced to the crowd moments ago and drew the kind of applause that the Clipper always does draw here in the city of New York. He is still an idol, even some 20 years almost after his retirement, 30 years I should say, after his retirement from the game of baseball. So Ken Norton and Gerry Cooney just about to have at each other in this showdown fight. It is absolutely, even though I admit to it being a cliche, a must fight for Ken Norton, for Gerry Cooney. It is a fight he has to have if he wants a title shot. And that, of course, would be the next logical step for him. To the ring announcer now, and Jack Lee for the introduction of the fighters.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Madison Square Garden, the world's #1 sports and entertainment center for tonight's 10-round heavyweight main event, sanctioned and supervised by the New York State Athletic Commission, Jack Prenderville, chairman. Your judges for the main event, Harold Letterman and Tony Castellano. The timekeeper is Fred Abatello. Counting for the knockdowns at the bell is Johnny Lobianco. And your referee for tonight's 10-round heavyweight main event is Tony Perez. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the principals in tonight's 10-round heavyweight main event. In the corner to my left, he hails from Los Angeles, California. He wears dark blue trunks trimmed in white. He weighs 225 pounds. Here is the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Ken Norton. His opponent in the corner to my right, undefeated in 24 professional fights with 21 knockouts. He hails from Huntington, New York, 225.25 pounds. He's decked out in all green with white and red stripes. Gentleman, Gerry Cooney. 10 rounds, final contest of the evening.
The most important casino. My command break. Stop punching and stop back. If you score a knockdown, I want you to go to the farthest neutral corner, stay there until I tell you to come out. Right? 3 knockdowns in 1 round will end the fight. Now 40 seconds. The bell will not save anybody from being knocked out, all right? If a fight is on the floor, please don't come in. That calls for disqualification. I hate to do that. So stay away. Wait till the fighter gets up, then you can help him, all right? Any questions? Shake hands. Good luck to both of you.
Well, Ray Norton in his introduction borrowing a little something from the Sugar Ray Leonard playbook and doing a little dance and a series of jabs as you look at the tail of the tape. Norton, 11 years the senior of Gerry Cooney, 6'6" to 6'3", big height advantage. The weight is just about comparable. So is the reach and all the other measurements. Round 1 underway. Norton on the right, Cooney on the left. The tactics of Ken Norton in the early rounds will be interesting to say the least. Whether he decides to pace himself, whether he decides to go after the #1 challenger. 10 rounds, 3 knockdown rule is in effect. The bell cannot save either man. A right hand buckled the knees of Norton by Gerry Cooney. First punch of the fight buckled Norton's knees. Left hand to the stomach, and another right hand to the side of the head of Norton, who stands on the ropes. Left hand to the heart by Cooney. Norton bangs away now at Cooney in Norton's corner. And another left hand scores, and again, the legs of Norton wobble. Norton is hurt in his own corner. Cooney trying to measure him. Misses 2 uppercuts, but scores with combinations of left stance. Norton straight up. Norton is about to drop. Norton is on his knees and finally slumps in the corner. He is not going to get up from this. The fight is over in 54 seconds. And if there was ever any doubt as to the punching power of Gerry Cooney, Ray Leonard, I think that doubt was put to bed right here.
Right. Cooney went out and did pretty much what I expected, but that was very dangerous when he was able to deliver 5, 6 blows, and the referee just stood there. I think the referee should have stopped the fight a lot sooner.
Norton was almost in a position where he was unable to fall down. He was kind of in a lodged position in his own corner. His knees never did touch, and so Cooney, of course, doing the right thing by just continuing to punch. But I think you make a very good point in that Tony Perez may have considered stepping in a little bit sooner than he did. Norton was out on his feet. Norton is still on the floor in his own corner. The first punch that hurt was the first punch of the fight, and it was a right hand that caught Ken Norton right on the side of the head.
Well, I was going to make a comment earlier about Gerry Cooney not having his perspiration on his body, that he had not warmed up. But as we can see, he didn't need to warm up because he possessed so much strength, and I'm pretty sure this is going to silence a lot of the critics that Cooney has one hand.
Well, I don't think there was any question about it. Right from the start of the fight, Cooney hurt Norton with the first punch. Now, I don't know, you may have to go back and you say, was Norton really prepared for this fight? Because the first punch of the fight buckled his knees.
Well, I'm quite sure Ken Norton was prepared for the fight. In fact, he's been in the ring with some of the all-time greats, and he knows what happens when you get into the ring unprepared. Ken Norton was in tip-top shape, and I'm quite sure he will give Cooney credit.
Now, you and I have had a chance to watch some of the great heavyweights. We've watched Larry Holmes together. Just off the top of your head, how would you compare Gerry Cooney right now with a Larry Holmes?
Well, Larry Holmes still has so much more physical attributes. Holmes can move, Holmes can punch, Holmes has a good jab. Whereas that, we really, I think, be very curious to see what Gerry Cooney can do with a guy that is mobile and really a good technician like Larry Holmes.
Well, of course, tonight is a great indication of the punching power of Gerry Cooney. There's no question about that. As far as stamina, how far he can go, what he would do against a champion like Larry Holmes, that still remains to be seen.
That's true, but what he exemplified tonight, I'm quite sure he's in the back of a lot of people's mind.
Right now, they have brought a stretcher into the ring to deal with Ken Norton, who is just now getting to his feet. There's no question that Ken Norton was literally out on his feet. We will try to get a report and give you a medical report on Ken Norton just as soon as that becomes available.
The punches that was delivered by Cooney and the leverage and balance that he had with him, I'm quite sure, I can almost say a guarantee that Norton, God forbid, has a concussion.
I think you can see that Ken Norton is conscious. He is sitting on his stool now. Commotion reigning all over the ring. More people in the ring, I think, than in the house here at Madison Square Garden. Gerry Cooney acknowledging some of the photographers standing up at the ringside. acknowledging the crowd. He was unquestionably the crowd favorite. I think everybody, just looking at the people around here, Ray, everybody has kind of a shocked expression on their face that the thing ended as quickly as it did.
Tell when to go.
We're up in the ring now. Let's go to Larry Merchant with Gerry Cooney.
How early in that round did you hurt him?
Well, I hit him with a straight right hand. And I saw him back up along the ropes. So Victor told me to be cautious at all times. And if I see my openings to go in and work as planned. Victor was training for I don't know how long up in the Concord and in New York here training, and told me the right thing.
Do you feel in some way, Gerry, that the quickness of this fight, excuse me, robs you in some way? That people will say that Ken Norton just couldn't fight anymore?
Doesn't matter to me anymore. I have my people here, my fans. We train hard. Mike Jones, Dennis Rappaport, Victor Valley, and myself. All right, we just love it, that's all.
All right, what is next? Is Mike Weaver next for the WBA championship?
Left to my managers, Mike Jones and Dennis Rappaport and Victor
All right,
Valley.
Mike Jones here is nodding and saying that Mike Weaver will be your next opponent for the heavyweight championship. Would you explain to our audience why Mike Weaver instead of Larry Holmes?
Well, since I turned professional, I just do the fighting. My managers do the managing. My man here, Victor, gets me in shape. I just leave it that way.
Well, they must be doing a perfect job so far. Dennis Rappaport, would you tell us why is he fighting Mike Weaver instead of Larry Holmes?
We really didn't have a choice. Our first preference would have been Holmes. Holmes has refused to fight Cooney, in spite of what he said to the media, where he verbalizes one thing, but in fact, in truth, when it came time to sign a contract, he refused to, they never signed. King was supposed to get back to us 3 months ago. Me and Mike called him several times, never got back to us after a meeting where we were supposed to sign a contract.
Are you concerned that the critics will say, well, he's beaten another fighter of the 70s. He's now going a total of about 4 or 5 rounds with fighters from the 70s, but he hasn't fought a good young fighter yet.
Larry, if at the end of Gerry's career, he never goes more than 2 rounds, thank the Lord, and we'll be very happy. It'll prove that he's the greatest fighter of all time. Let the cynics ask the same questions when he's heavyweight champion of the world, because that's his destiny, the championship of the world.
Thank you very much. I'll be back in a few moments. I'm going to try to reach Ken Norton. Back to ringside.
All right, thank you very much, Larry Merchant. Larry is now working his way through some of the crowd to try to get to Ken Norton's corner. We will try to have a report just on what kind of condition Norton is in. If it is at all possible, we will try to get an interview with the loser. We right now are going to have an opportunity to look at the entire, when I say entire, I mean 54 seconds of this fight. There was just never a doubt about the outcome of the fight from the first punch that was thrown by Gerry Cooney, which was a right-hand lead. You heard him talk to Larry Merchant about it as it being a straight right hand. When it happened, I believe we said that the knees of Ken Norton buckled. And now let's take one more look. Ray Leonard, we're going to get a chance to see from the beginning of this fight right to the end of it, 54 seconds long. They started in the center of the ring, and you could see Norton really not going to that peekaboo kind of defense in the early rounds.
Well, Norton tried to see whether or not his left jab could do any damage to Cooney. And this is a very fast pace, especially for heavyweights.
Now the right hand from Cooney will come right there. The right hand, and you see the knees of Norton buckle just that quick. Great shot.
Well, Cooney possessed so much strength, so much power in his left hand and his right hand, as we see. And here he's just taking control of Ken Norton completely.
Now, right at that juncture, I think you saw that Ken Norton was a beaten man. He did all he could just to get off the ropes. But again, just a stinging left hand to the face right there. Now Cooney turns Norton around, and once he does that, he misses those 2 uppercuts. I think it was the last punch he missed.
Well, Barry, here we see a lot of punches being thrown. And right here, I think the referee should have jumped in. Look at the punches that are being thrown and landed.
Just a brutal beating in a very short space of time, administered by Gerry Cooney to the former champion Ken Norton. Ray, we're going to get another shot at this from a different angle. Let's look at it one more time.
Now we can see the power that Cooney possesses as he throws that beautiful left hook. It's a very short and powerful left hook. And here Norton is basically trying to hold on because he is hurt. And Cooney's trying to get around him. In fact, he's doing a pretty good job of movement, gaining position, gaining leverage, and starting to take full control of the opportunity that he has here.
Now, he missed those 2 uppercuts, but after that, he did not miss a punch. There's 1 right here, 1, and then 2, and another punch that scores up on the shoulder, although at this juncture that can hurt. 3, 4, and 5 or 6 more punches before the referee, Tony Perez, finally stepped in and stopped the fight. There was always the question about the right hand. That question was answered tonight. Right now, Larry Merchant is up in the ring. Let's go to Larry, see if he has a report on Ken Norton. Larry?
Exactly 4 years ago tonight, Ken Norton ended the dreams of Dwayne Bobbitt with a 58-second KO in the first round. I was here at the time, and I was thankful that I wasn't getting paid by the round. Here tonight, he lasted about twice as long, and that's all. This fight has been star-crossed from the very beginning when it was originally scheduled for a big MAPS promotion here at the Garden. It came back, and the only people who have been hurt worse than Ken Norton tonight have been Madison Square Garden's promoters, because the fight only drew about 7,000 or 8,000 people. The two fighters were promised a total of almost $2 million. There was nowhere near that here in the Garden tonight. Estimates that they may have lost up to $1 million. Now the heavyweight division stands something sort of like this. Larry Holmes is acknowledged and recognized, and rightly so, as the best heavyweight in the world. Right behind him, Mike Weaver, who is a WBA champion, and Gerry Cooney, who is the #1 ranked challenger. And two very promising youngsters right behind them, Mike Dokes and Greg Page, both unbeaten, both highly talented. I doubt, however, that Gerry Cooney is going to come out of this fight unscathed. He still hasn't beaten a live young fighter. Now we're going to go back to ringside with Ray and Barry.
Okay, thank you, Larry Merchant. Well, point well taken. The Garden did come out probably the biggest loser. Unquestionably, the biggest winner was Gerry Cooney. Ken Norton had said long ago, actually before he went into his 15-month retirement, that after the Muhammad Ali fight at Yankee Stadium, he was never the same fighter again. He lost a fight in that case that he thought he won. It went 15 rounds, and Norton fought a great fight, went right down to the final round before he lost it. He said, I never trained so hard again. He said, I never could put the same kind of drive, the same kind of feeling into it. I have never been the same fighter ever since. I think that was clearly evident tonight. Ray, I would think that at this point, were you to be Ken Norton, you would have to say, it's been a great business, and now let's think about the movies.
I'm quite sure Ken Norton, he knows fully well now that his career here in the ring has ended, and he's a smart enough man to know that. Your body, it tells you, sends you messages in very mysterious ways, and I'm quite sure Ken Norton has received that message.
All right, we're going to get an opportunity to see that punch once again. The punch that really did the damage was the very first punch of the fight. It was a straight right hand. They started in the middle of the ring. Actually, Norton doing a lot of bobbing and weaving and up and down kind of motion rather than the kind of peekaboo style that had become his trademark defensively. Here's another look at it. Larry Merchant has joined us ringside. Now, Larry, let's talk about your evaluation of it. That first right hand really was all she wrote.
Well, we've talked about this all night long, that Ken Norton's problems are early in fights. If he gets past the first few rounds, his confidence grows. But there he was caught by the right hand, and his knees buckled, and he goes to the ropes. Again, characteristically, he did that against George Foreman. He did that against Ernie Shavers. He's doing that against a smart and very strong young fighter here, and he just can't handle it. The left hand right there was the finisher, I believe. He got stunned earlier, and there he goes, and he just got pinned against the bottom strand of the rope, and he was sitting there somehow subconsciously just trying to stay upright by sitting on that bottom strand, but just taking more and more punishment. He was dazed and helpless. He's all right now. We were in the corner. The doctors didn't want him to do any talking, but he said he was all right. He didn't know what happened and what hit him and who would.
You know, I think the other thing that was most impressive, and Ray, this is something I think that Ray Leonard himself does. Larry, I'm sure you'll agree. Gerry Cooney did not waste a punch. He threw those two uppercuts that missed, but after that, he didn't miss a punch. I would say he probably only missed 4 punches in the fight.
I think Cooney had a strategy, and that was to hop right on to Ken Norton, thinking that he was far too stronger. After, I think, viewing the George Foreman and the Ernie Shavers fight with Ken Norton, I felt that he was able to get on top of Ken Norton and end the fight early.
Victor Valley, who is his trainer, had told Gerry Cooney, he said, keep your chin down, keep your chin down. He had always told him that. And then, of course, the Ken Norton fight that was originally scheduled for the Garden here was canceled. And then Valley said to him, keep your chin up, keep your chin up. Cooney said he didn't know what to do at that point.
Well, before the fight, Norton was saying that the stove may be old, but there's still fire in it. And I think the fire is out now. And whatever we want to say about those heavyweights of the 70s that Gerry Cooney is feasting on, he's making they're making good money for coming back and showing that they're not ready to fight. And this is the 3rd or 4th heavyweight of the 70s who's taken an awful beating in the last year.
Gerry Cooney has said, as a matter of fact, Cooney said before the fight, because there'd always been the criticism of whether or not he could take a punch. He said, I hope they're asking me that when my career is over, whether or not I can take a punch. Well, there was nothing proven on that score tonight. I got to say that. Whether or not Gerry Cooney can take a punch will not be proven by what he did with Ken Norton today. Norton did a job that was just all he could do. The right hand by Cooney was all she wrote. But I don't think there's ever going to be a question, at least at this juncture or in the near future, of whether or not Gerry Cooney can take a punch. Nobody's hit him.
Well, if Cooney keep hitting the way he's hitting, he'll never be able to see whether or not he can take a punch. I don't blame him.
So now you have to look at what's ahead. Mike Weaver is the guy that you heard Dennis Rappaport, the manager, one of the co-managers of Gerry Cooney, say was going to be next. Let's make the hypothetical fight again. How does Gerry Cooney do against Mike Weaver?
Well, he's just as strong for anyone. I think he's capable of knocking any heavyweight out. I guess, again, we just have to wait and see what's going to take place.
One guy who I know is going to have a great say in exactly what does take place is Don King. And right now, Larry Merchant is with promoter Don King. Larry?
I'm with Don King, the promoter, the man who promotes most of Larry Holmes' fights. Don, in the ring, Dennis Rappaport, the co-manager of Gerry Cooney, said that their first preference had been Larry Holmes, but that they didn't think that Larry Holmes really wanted to fight Cooney. Now, what are the facts in the matter as you know it?
That's ludicrous, Larry. Larry Holmes is the greatest heavyweight in the world today. He's undefeated. He had 8 knockouts and 8 defenses, and then he had 1 decision. We begged, literally begged to fight Cooney, and we're still willing and ready and able to fight Cooney. In Mexico, Larry slapped Cooney like he was a little boy, and so I think he intimidated Cooney, and I don't think that Cooney really wants to fight Larry. But if Dennis Rappaport really wants to fight and to make this fighter a credible fighter, he'd have to fight a guy that's 40 years old like Ken Norton, who was beaten before he got in the ring. Let's put a real contest on. Let's put him in there with the heavyweight champion of the world, Larry Holmes, and we're ready right now.
Well, Mike Weaver doesn't seem anxious to unify the title either. Is that a marriage of convenience then? Weaver fighting Cooney and neither one of them having to fight Holmes?
Absolutely. They're avoiding Holmes every way that they can. Weaver is afraid of Holmes because he knocked him out in this very ring here on June 22nd a year ago. And now I think that Cooney is afraid too.
Thank you very much, Don. Back to Barry and Ray.
All right, thank you very much, Larry Merchant with promoter Don King. Don says that Larry Holmes is ready for Gerry Cooney, and I don't know, I think that would be a fight that really would be made in heaven, not unlike the Sugar Ray Leonard's Hearns fight.
I'll be looking forward to that fight.
The name Eddie Lopez may not exactly be a household name, but he may be remembered for one reason. On January 13th, 1979, Eddie Lopez went the distance with Gerry Cooney. He was the last guy to do that, and who knows, he may be the last guy to do that based on what we saw tonight.
I'm glad I'm not a heavyweight, Barry.
I got to tell you, the heavyweight division, of course, really taking a big upsurge tonight with a victory by Gerry Cooney, and a convincing victory it was. Cooney runs his record thus to 25-0. Ken Norton is now 42-7-1. The 3 of the 7 fights, including tonight's fight that he lost, came in championship fights. One other great irony, I think, and that is the fact that Ken Norton will go down in history as the only champion to never win a title fight. We have a cheering section led here by Don King, who is saying, Holmes, Holmes, and I'm sure that too is what Gerry Cooney is saying in his own locker room right now. He was a convincing victor today in 54 seconds. So looking ahead for Gerry Cooney, there was another criticism before we jump off the track that I do want to ask you about. The criticism of Cooney before the fight was that he's been brought along too slowly. That was a criticism that I remember hearing about Ray Leonard too. It worked out just fine for you.
I think Cooney has a very good pace. In fact, his trainers and managers, I think, on the right road. As we see, Cooney has progressed, he has matured, and it's quite evident that this guy is in the top of the heavyweight division. He's young and has so much more to learn.
Well, there's one thing that Ken Norton admitted to before the fight, and that was that he slacked in training for Shavers and for Scott Ledoux. Ledoux took him to a draw, Shavers knocked him out. That's a question, I guess, Larry, that will not be answered, whether or not he was, in fact, in shape to fight Gerry Cooney.
Well, I didn't like his weight, but even assuming that, we ought to know by now, after seeing Muhammad Ali go down before Holmes, after seeing Lyle, that whatever their best intentions were of getting in shape and of giving a good effort at the end of their careers, that when you're fighting a good young fighter, it just doesn't mean much.
So Gerry Cooney really is the convincing victor tonight. He does so without a punch ever being landed by Ken Norton. Cooney came right out, stuck Norton with a straight right hand. Norton's legs buckled. He went down under a barrage of punches in his own corner. He never did get up. If anything, the fight should have been stopped before it was, and it was stopped just 1 minute and 6 seconds into the fight. So Gerry Cooney runs his record now to 25-0. He scores his 21st knockout. He was the #1 contender coming into this fight, and there is no doubt but to his claim to that right now. The next question, who is he going to fight from here? Will it be Mike Weaver, who he says it will be? Will it be Larry Holmes, who this man right here, Don King, says it will be? That just about wraps it up then from Madison Square Garden. The #1 challenger is still just that, Gerry Cooney, more than just a mildly convincing victor tonight. So for Larry Merchant and Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm Barry Tompkins from Madison Square Garden saying so long for now. We'll see you the next time around this June. Marvin Hagler and Vito Antuofermo. See you then. So be sure to join us. That all happens next month. The fight we just told you about, Marvin Hagler, Vito Antuofermo. It'll happen in Boston live Saturday, June the 13th. The executive producer of HBO Sports is Michael Fuchs. The show is produced by Tim Brain. Directed by Bob Fitzpatrick. The associate director was Linda Jackson. Assistant to the producer is Rick Bernstein. This has been a presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.
Let's all celebrate and have a good time.